In the pantheon of athletic legends, few debates have consumed the global consciousness with the fervor and persistence of Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. It is a discourse that transcends the hardwood, spilling into barbershops, boardrooms, and digital forums, defining a generational divide in the process. For over a decade, this argument has been framed as a simple comparison between two titans of basketball. But this is a fundamental misreading of the question. This is not a debate between two players. It is a clash between two distinct philosophies of greatness, two separate definitions of what it means to be the greatest of all time. The comparison has been aptly described as one between the Encyclopedia Britannica and the Google search engine. LeBron James represents the modern Google-esque model of greatness, a vast, ever-expanding, and algorithmically optimized database of achievement. His career is a monument to volume, durability, and statistical accumulation, a body of work so extensive it can feel overwhelming, its sheer scale arguing for its own supremacy. Michael Jordan, conversely, is the Encyclopedia Britannica, the definitive, authoritative, and deeply researched volume. His greatness is not measured in gigabytes of data, but in the unimpeachable quality of its content, a concentrated, unblemished, and peer-reviewed account of absolute dominance. The question, therefore, is not which career is more extensive, but which definition of greatness is more true. While LeBron James has meticulously constructed one of the most statistically impressive careers in the annals of sport, Michael Jordan's legacy represents an unassailable peak of dominance. This peak is defined by flawless execution under maximum pressure, a psychological warfare that systematically broke opponents, and a cultural impact that forged a global myth. This analysis will demonstrate that the argument is not about the best career, a title LeBron's longevity has earned him a claim to, but about the greatest player, a distinction that Jordan holds in perpetuity. At the heart of the modern argument for James is the concept of longevity, a narrative that often conflates durability with superiority. His accumulation of counting stats, points, rebounds, assists is presented as the primary evidence of his claim. While longevity is a testament to value and physical maintenance, peak dominance is the true hallmark of the greatest of all time. Jordan's career was not a long, sustained burn, it was a concentrated supernova of peak performance, an explosion of talent and will so intense that its light continues to eclipse all who have come after. It is the intensity of that supernova, not the duration of the burn, that defines the GOAT. The 6-0 doctrine, perfection on the ultimate stage. The foundation of Michael Jordan's claim to GOAT status rests upon a single, immutable, and philosophically unanswerable data point: his perfect 6-0 record in the NBA Finals. This is not merely a statistic, it is a doctrine. Accompanied by 6 Finals MVP awards, it signifies an unblemished, undefeated, and undisputed reign of terror on basketball's ultimate stage. In 6 trips to the championship series, Jordan never lost. He never allowed an opponent to force a Game 7. He was, without exception, the single most dominant force and the clear-cut most valuable player every time the Larry O'Brien Trophy was on the line. This perfection stands in stark mathematical contrast to LeBron James's 4-6 finals record. While reaching 10 finals is an achievement of endurance, a losing record on that stage is, by definition, a chronicle of failure to conquer the final peak. The 6-0 doctrine posits that the ultimate measure of greatness is not the number of attempts, but the flawless execution in the moments that matter most. The narrative that Jordan's finals opponents were somehow lacking is immediately challenged by his 1993 showdown with the Phoenix Suns. The Suns were a powerhouse, a 62-win team led by the league's reigning most valuable player, Charles Barkley. This was not a coronation, it was a battle against a legitimate MVP-led challenger. Jordan's response was a historic display of offensive firepower that remains the gold standard for a finals performance. He averaged a finals record 41.0 points per game for the series, a mark of sustained dominance that has never been equaled. In Game 4, with the series in the balance, he delivered a 55-point masterpiece at Chicago Stadium, an offensive onslaught that left the Suns helpless. The series was defined by a head-to-head duel between the two best players on the planet. In Game 2, both Jordan and Barkley scored 42 points, a first in NBA Finals history. Yet, it was Barkley himself who, in reflecting on that game, provided the most telling verdict.
I played as well as I could play.
From the outside, Barkley.
and Michael just outplayed me. That was probably the first time in my life that I felt like there was a better basketball player in the world than me, to be honest with you.
The series culminated in Game 6 with one of the most iconic plays in Bulls history. With the Bulls trailing, the final play was designed for Jordan, but the Suns' defense collapsed on him. This gravitational pull, the sheer terror he induced in the opposition, created the opening for John Paxson, who calmly drained the series-winning three-pointer. Jordan didn't take the final shot, but he was the reason it was possible. He defeated the MVP and his 62-win team, not just with scoring, but with the sheer force of his presence. The 1998 Finals, the last dance. If the 1993 Finals demonstrated Jordan's ability to conquer a great opponent at his peak, the 1998 Finals showcased his capacity to win through sheer force of will when his own legendary team was on its last legs. The 1998 Chicago Bulls were an aging dynasty. Scottie Pippen, his indispensable partner, was severely hampered by a debilitating back injury that limited his effectiveness. The burden on Jordan was immense. In the crucible of Game 6 in Utah, with the championship on the line, Jordan delivered one of the most iconic performances in sports history. He played 44 of 48 minutes, took 35 of his team's 67 shots, and scored 45 of the Bulls' 87 points, an astonishing 51.7% of his team's total offense. The final 42 seconds of that game are a microcosm of his entire career, a sequence of unparalleled basketball IQ and clutch execution. First, with the Bulls down 3, he drove for a quick layup to cut the lead to 1, a brilliant strategic move to conserve time and set up one final defensive stand. Then, on the ensuing Jazz possession, as Karl Malone, a two-time MVP, settled into the post, Jordan abandoned his own man, read the play perfectly, and stripped the ball from the unsuspecting big man. What followed is etched into the collective memory of sports fans. Jordan, calmly dribbling up the court, sizing up Brian Russell, executing a crossover that sent Russell stumbling, and rising up to hit the last shot. It was a sequence of offensive brilliance, defensive genius, and championship will, all executed by one man in the span of 37 seconds to secure his 6th and final title. A common refrain in the modern debate is that LeBron James faced a higher quality of competition in the NBA Finals. Advanced metrics like ELO ratings and opponent win percentages do suggest that, on average, the teams James lost to in the finals were statistically stronger than the teams Jordan defeated. However, this argument suffers from two critical flaws in logic. First, it ignores the gauntlet Jordan had to run just to reach the finals. While James enjoyed a period of dominance over a historically weak Eastern Conference, Jordan's path was a crucible. He had to vanquish legendary rivals and Hall of Fame-laden rosters year after year: the bad boy Detroit Pistons, Patrick Ewing's New York Knicks, Reggie Miller's Indiana Pacers, and Shaquille O'Neal's Orlando Magic. The data is clear. The average rating of the teams Jordan faced in the Eastern Conference playoffs was significantly higher than those faced by James. Jordan was more battle-hardened, forged in the fires of a tougher conference, which prepared him for total conquest in the finals. Second, the argument creates the fallacy of the good loss. It implicitly suggests that losing to a great team is somehow less of a failure. The standard for the greatest of all time is not losing admirably to a superior opponent. It is finding a way to beat that opponent. Jordan's 6-0 record is a testament to his ability to meet and conquer every challenge presented to him. A loss is a failure to win. There is no greater evidence of this than the 2011 NBA Finals, where James and the Miami Heat were heavily favored against the Dallas Mavericks. In that series, James faltered, averaging a mere 3 points in the fourth quarters of the 6-game series and shrinking from the moment. It is an unerasable blemish on his record, a type of high-stakes collapse that simply does not exist on Michael Jordan's resume. Perfection is a higher standard than a losing record, regardless of the opponent's strength. While James's opponents were, on average, statistically stronger, Jordan's performance was flawless and individually more dominant. The perfect record, the unanimous finals MVPs, and the superior scoring average on the biggest stage render the opponent's strength argument moot. Jordan did not just participate in the finals, he owned them. The anatomy of a killer, dissecting the clutch gene. The term clutch is often diluted in modern sports discourse, reduced to a highlight reel of last-second shots. For Michael Jordan, however, clutch was not an action, but a state of being. It was a sustained campaign of psychological warfare waged in the most critical moments of a game, an aura of inevitability that demoralized opponents long before the final buzzer sounded. It was, for lack of a better term, a killer instinct. This instinct is cataloged in a litany of legendary moments. There is the shot over Craig Elo in 1989 to win a playoff series. There is the buzzer-beating jumper to win Game 1 of the 1997 Finals. There is the series-clinching dagger in 1998, which has its own name, The Last Shot, a statistical testament to his reliability when the game was on the line. But his clutch performance went far beyond single moments. It was about total fourth-quarter dominance. In the 1997 playoffs, for instance, Jordan's fourth-quarter performances were staggering. In Game 2 against the Bullets, he scored 20 points in the final frame, while the rest of his team scored just 3. He repeated this feat against the Heat in the conference finals, again scoring 20, while his teammates contributed 3. He was not just his team's best option, he was often his team's only option, and he consistently delivered against defenses that knew exactly where the ball was going. Jordan's philosophy was one of proactive aggression. "I never looked at the consequences of missing a big shot," he once said. "When you think about the consequences, you will always think of the negative result." His focus was entirely on the act of succeeding, with failure being an irrelevant externality. This stands in stark contrast to LeBron James's more pragmatic and ultimately more human approach. You can't be afraid to fail. It's the only way you succeed. You're not going to succeed all the time, and I know that, James has stated. This is the philosophy of a resilient, strategic thinker who understands that failure is a part of the process of growth. While a mature and healthy outlook, it is fundamentally different from the mindset of an apex predator. Jordan's mentality did not allow for the contemplation of failure in the critical moment. James's mentality accepts failure as a possibility. That subtle but profound psychological difference is the very essence of the clutch gene. It is the dividing line between a great player who can win and a killer who simply will not lose. The Great Inflation, deconstructing the statistical record. The primary pillar of LeBron James's case for GOAT status is his staggering accumulation of career statistics. He is the NBA's all-time leading scorer and holds top ranks in nearly every major category, a testament to his unprecedented longevity and all-around skill set. However, to accept these numbers at face value is to ignore the dramatic context in which they were produced. These statistics are not the result of a superior player, but the product of a different, statistically inflated era, combined with a playing style that prioritizes high percentage, low difficulty shots over scoring craft. A fundamentally different game. Comparing raw statistics across eras without adjustment is an exercise in analytical malpractice. The NBA of Michael Jordan's prime and the NBA of LeBron James's long reign are two fundamentally different sporting environments. The most telling metric is league-wide scoring. In James's rookie season, 2003-04, the league average points per game was a gritty 93.4. In the modern era, that number has ballooned to over 115 points per game, the highest in modern history. This is not a natural evolution. It is the result of a deliberate, strategic assault on defense by the league office. The implementation of stricter hand-checking rules and the promotion of a freedom of movement philosophy have systematically handicapped defenders, creating an environment of undeniable statistical enhancement. Jordan thrived in an era of physicality, where hand-checking was legal and defenses were allowed to be punishing. James has built his statistical empire in an era designed to inflate offensive numbers and create more entertaining basketball. Deconstructing the scoring record, the stat padding argument. The claim that James is the greatest scorer because he holds the all-time points record is perhaps the most misleading narrative in the entire debate. A forensic analysis of his scoring profile reveals a player who is a master of efficiency through volume, not a master of scoring craft. Approximately 40% of James's career shot attempts have come from within 5 feet of the basket, where he converts at a highly efficient 71% clip. However, on all shots taken outside of that 5-foot radius, essentially any shot that is not a layup or a dunk, his career field goal percentage plummets to a far more pedestrian 37%. His vaunted career field goal percentage of over 50% is heavily skewed by a high volume of the easiest shots in basketball. This has been described as a relatively minuscule skill set for a player lauded as a scorer, especially when compared to Jordan's legendary and diverse arsenal of mid-range fadeaways, pull-up jumpers, and post moves, which he utilized to dominate in a more physically demanding defensive era. The most damning piece of evidence against the greatest scorer claim is the vast chasm in scoring titles. Michael Jordan led the NBA in scoring 10 times. LeBron James has done so once. A scoring title is the definitive empirical proof that a player was the single best offensive weapon in the league for an entire season. Jordan achieved this for a decade. James's all-time scoring record is an award for longevity and durability, not a crown for scoring dominance. James's greatness is rooted in volume and longevity, while Jordan's is rooted in unparalleled peak dominance and efficiency. The debate between Michael Jordan and LeBron James has been argued with statistics, accolades, and anecdotal evidence, often resulting in a stalemate between two competing definitions of greatness. Yet, when the arguments are deconstructed and placed in their proper context, a definitive conclusion emerges. The 6-0 doctrine, perfection on the NBA's ultimate stage, is the highest possible achievement, a standard Jordan met and James did not. A 100% success rate is infinitely greater than a 40% success rate. The killer instinct. Jordan possessed the psychological dominance and a clutch gene that manifested not just in game-winning shots, but in an unwavering will to win that systematically broke his opponents. Statistical context. When adjusted for the defensive physicality and lower scoring environment of his era, Jordan's per-game dominance and efficiency were more profound than James's. His 10 scoring titles to James's 1 is the ultimate proof of his superior scoring prowess. The era inflation. James's voluminous counting stats are the product of unprecedented longevity in an era of offensive inflation, making them a misleading metric for comparing greatness. LeBron James has, without question, assembled one of the greatest careers in the history of professional sports. His longevity, durability, and sustained excellence over 2 decades are monuments to his greatness. But Michael Jordan was, and remains, the single greatest basketball player the world has ever seen. His career was not a long, methodical accumulation of data points. It was a series of lightning strikes, each one redefining the limits of athletic possibility. He stands alone on the unassailable peak, the final, definitive volume in the library of greatness. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Let me know in the comments what your definition of greatness is. Thanks for watching.